Hi everybody, how are you? Monday night, another live. We were all snowed in. How was everybody's day today? Just waiting for everybody to get on. We are having a live now about mental health with Eli Weinreb. I'm just waiting for him to come on. Hi everybody, thanks for coming. It was a snow day today. We were all in and we're gonna have a great conversation now. We're gonna be talking about mental health with Eli Weinreb. Let me see if he's on. Hi everybody, thanks for joining. Let me check if he's on. Okay, let me invite. Where is Ellie? Ellie, you have to come on so I can invite you. Okay, we're going to be discussing mental health, anxieties. You have any questions, either send them to me privately or just put them here in the box. We're going to talk about anxiety. What can we do about different anxieties that we have? It's year 2026. Thanks everybody for joining. Ellie, I'm waiting for you. Ellie, are you on? Don't see him. Okay. I don't see Ellie. In the meantime, what should we do? Does anyone have any questions regarding mental health, about hiring a coach or hiring a therapist? By the way, I just want to put in a plug for OK Clarity. My post was on OK Clarity. And I don't see him. He's not on. Ellie, you have to come on. You have to join the live, and then I have to invite you and you'll press the invitation. So the reason why I chose Ellie to do a live with tonight is because Ellie posts every single day interesting posts, and I really, really like it. Like, I'm just so amazed by his ease and expertise, and he's so young, and I know that he has a following. He has a very nice practice. I think he works for Rambam Health. I still don't see him, so I can't invite him. Ellie, you have to come on the live. I don't think he knows that. Oh, here he is. Ellie's on. Okay. Ellie, I'm going to invite you. Ellie, just accept the invitation. I just invited you, Ellie, and come on. Great. Ellie's here. Oh, thank you so much, Ellie. Thanks for joining us. Everyone is so excited. Yeah. How are you? It's your first live, right?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. See, it wasn't that difficult, was it?
No.
No. Okay, fantastic. Good. Okay, great. So let's jump right into it. I want to discuss mental health. Someone's asking, how do you find a good coach or therapist? Okay, so OK Clarity has a Instagram presence, but they also have a website, okclarity.com. I'll put it here. And you go on there and you search for what you need, which neighborhood, what you're looking for. There are references, there are videos. It's really, really great. I've personally used them for different things. Ellie is on it. Okay, Ellie, first of all, I know you from when you were little. It's a riot. That is the same Ellie. So that's funny.
Yes.
From 47th and 12th Avenue. Okay, good. So Ellie, just tell us a little about yourself. Where did you grow up and how did you even get into social work?
Yeah. So I grew up in Borough Park. I got into social work because I growing up in Borough Park, going back 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, there was a lot of, it was a very black and white world, at least in a lot of ways. Seeing how, when some people went a little bit left, a little bit right, as opposed to, the way the family, viewed, appeared, it was pretty much just, a lot of times people would be just ousted in a sense. So it went from a point of, I saw friends of mine, different people that I knew, where they would go from a point of, just wanting to be slightly different, being a little bit different to feeling like they weren't welcome in their own home anymore. And
Wow.
seeing that, I always wanted to, make a difference where we can create that middle ground so that, everybody could not just throw everything away because of a little bit of a difference.
Wow. So do you find that today in your practice you're doing that, Ellie? Like you're really able to help
Yeah, I mean, I
families?
think that definitely over time, Baruch Hashem, there has been a lot more adjustment. There's definitely a lot more openness and understanding in the world and in the firm community, especially even in Borough Park. So there has been a lot of change in that. But I definitely do work with teens. One of the specialties that I work on are is working with disenfranchised people, which are people just struggling, lost in their direction of where they're headed, where they're going in many
Wow.
different ways.
So do you work with Rabbanim too, like as far as hashkafa and things like that, or
Yeah, absolutely.
you do?
As needed, I definitely work along with different rabbanim. Yeah.
Mm. So do you have your own practice, or do you work for this Rambam Health? How does it work?
Yeah. So I do have my own practice in Lakewood.
Oh, okay. I
Um,
didn't know that. Okay.
yeah. So I have a practice in Lakewood on Cross Street. That's a private practice. And then I also still do go into Brooklyn a few days a week where I see clients as well at Rambam Health over there.
Wow, fantastic. Okay, so I right away want to jump into anxiety just because it's a huge word. And today everybody's anxious about something or other. I happen to have liked what you posted today on your personal WhatsApp about the snow. Like
Hmm.
most of our anxieties are the fear of the unknown. That's a
Yeah.
very powerful statement. I want to type it in. Most of our anxieties are the fear of the unknown. Because I
The way
never,
I like to say it is I always say anxiety is the uncomfortability with uncertainty.
right, right, right.
Right?
Okay, so
Meaning
right.
that we have a lot of uncertainties in our lives, but not necessarily will it trigger anxiety. It's when
Mhm.
we are uncomfortable with the uncertainty, that's where the anxiety begins to trigger.
Wow, 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 wow. Okay, so from an Amuna and Torah perspective, I'm very into just like a person goes to the gym and first they lift the 2 pounds, the 3 pounds, the 5 pounds, then they're doing 20 pounds all of a sudden, it gradually helps you. So from my personal life and from my teachings, I'm very into Amuna, that the opposite of fear is faith. So from that perspective, if someone is really able to work on their Amuna, and every single night read on their night table. This Rabbi David Asher, I think, has 8 books already. It's like,
Mhm.
it's unbelievable. And just you read a page when you wake up and read a page when you go to sleep. I happen to have found other books in my house that I never even read. Just one word, Muna. That looks great. Reb Tzion's book, Life is a Test. It's an incredible book, by the way, if no one ever read it. So that's what I would recommend. Also, who's the rabbi that does the daily bitachon? It's like a couple
Rabbi
minutes.
Michael Safdie.
Oh my gosh, I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I have met guys in business in Lakewood who have told me personally that he has changed their life. They don't start their day without listening to Rabbi Safdie. And I personally, if I'll wake up 3:30 in the morning and I'll start like panicking, what's going to be with my mother? She's living alone. I have 2 kids that still need to get married. Like 3:30 when your brain starts going, I listen to Rabbi Safdie.
There you go. Yeah,
Yes,
I started listening to Daily Bitachon about a month ago, and it's definitely for me personally, it's definitely a huge positive
yes.
impact. I will say
Eh,
though that, some people aren't holding there yet. Some people are not,
Right. No, no, no. So
at
that's what
that
I
point.
wanted to talk to you about. Right. If I'm coming into you with anxiety, how would you treat me? What is the treatment like? Yeah.
Well, I think firstly, I would say is what is anxiety, right? And I said, a few minutes ago is that anxiety is the uncomfortability with uncertainty. So just understanding anxiety and just to start understanding it's a great place. Also, a really, really important piece is anxiety is a good thing. So I think 90% of people, or not necessarily 90%, but a high percentage of people, if you were to ask them, is anxiety a good thing or a bad thing? They're going to say it's a bad thing. But anxiety has a lot of really, really positive aspects, meaning usually anxiety is triggered in a new scenario, in a new experience that we're going through, right? When we go through things a number of times, when we go through things frequently, the anxiety reduces. And the reason why it goes down is because we become used to the situation. We don't have that uncertainty anymore. But with anxiety, understanding that it's a good thing, it helps us prepare for that moment that we're about to go through so that we can then overcome the situation or succeed in the situation that we're going through. So
Wow.
if we didn't have anxiety, it would really be a negative thing.
Right. So it's a positive thing you're saying, anxiety.
Absolutely.
It's
Obviously,
funny you say that. Like
everything with
even when you go on vacation, let's say, right? Do you find if you go to the same place the second time, you enjoy it more because you know what to pack, you know what the hotel's all about, you know, like the first time you go, you're not sure, is there kosher food, not. I find the second time you do something, so that's very interesting. You're saying this about anxiety, like the more anxious you are, um,
Well, the more in your head you are, right? I mean, anxiety is really that we're living in our head. So understanding that's really important. Meaning, what is anxiety, right? Anxiety is that feeling that we're really just that uncertainty there. It's really that we're stuck in our head. So you ask me, what would I do with somebody who's struggling with anxiety? So I do use CBT and DBT a lot, as
oh
well as
great,
IFS.
okay. You
So
want to just
CBT,
explain to people the difference between CBT, DBT, and IFS quickly?
absolutely. So it's not really a quickly thing, but I will say
Right, I know,
in
I
a
know. Just if you can
yeah.
give a one-liner if possible. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. It's the cognitive, it's really understanding the cognitive, the mind, the behaviors that we do. And it's really trying to switch uh, the thoughts we have and the behaviors, which there's a number of different tools I use. One is the Beck triangle, which is basically, it's a triangle and it has the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And our thoughts lead to our feelings, which lead to our behaviors. So, and it sort of goes in a loop. When we go through a negative thought, it leads to a negative feeling, which then leads to a negative behavior, and that then continues, where that then leads to another negative thought, negative feeling, negative behavior. So, if we're able to add a thought and add a more positive thinking pattern, then we create from a positive thought, we can create a positive feeling, which then leads to a positive behavior as well. For example, when somebody walks into the room and they're looking in your direction laughing, automatically the first thought is why they're laughing at me, which that creates insecurity, leads us to either run away or confront them aggressively. But if we add a thought such as, oh, maybe I'm missing a good joke, well, now the feeling I'm having is not self-conscious or, it goes to more of a curious feeling, which leads me to go over to the person and say, hey, what was the joke I missed? So it really, just by adding a thought, it can change our entire world and that whole loop can just keep going to a more positive direction.
Wow, which really reminds me, one of the things that why I wanted to do a live with you a while already, your quotes every day are fantastic. I don't know where you pull them from, but every one day is better than the next. And one of the quotes you had done was, the biggest asset in the world is your mindset.
Absolutely.
That's a very powerful line. And then you also had a little diagram of reframing your mindset. I didn't
Hmm.
write everything down, but that was also powerful.
Yeah. I find them all over the place. I do have my own quotes that I come up with, but usually these quotes that I do are more of it's more of I'll find the quotes, but the thing that I do with my group, the Positively Psyched group, is that I'll post the quote, but then I'll also post a like breakdown of the quote with a psychological twist.
Mm. So how do I join that group? How do I join a positively psych group?
So I could definitely add the link. I can try to add it here, but
You should kind of just add your link in your bio, Ellie. Do you have
mm,
it in your bio on Instagram?
I have to check. I'm not sure.
I could show you how to do that. I'll show you how to do that. Basically, when someone goes to your Instagram page on the
Mhm.
top, they would just
Yeah,
press the
yeah,
link.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't think I have it. I think I have a quote there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's so cute. Okay. So we covered basically, where you work, what exactly you do. Um, with anxiety, is there ever a time that you would recommend a client for medication if you feel that some of the DBT or the CBT or IFS they're not catching on quick enough and they're very
So,
anxious?
so it's a good question. I mean, medication's a scary thing when it comes to anxiety, depression, because it's an SSRI, which it's not like when you take a medication for ADHD, it's instant. There's no long-term effect at all. With anxiety medication, depression, there can be longer-term effects. Again, not
Mhm.
necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily say, oh, just jump into medication. Obviously, there are times where you could be in therapy. If somebody's in therapy for years and it's not working for them, that can be a good idea. I will say I've worked with a number of clients where they've gone from taking medication to completely being off medication too, which is
Oh,
not an
wow.
easy thing as well. But that's incredible. It really comes down to the pure will of the client and the determination to get off the medication.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah,
So
yeah.
again, I just to clarify again, I don't think that medication is a bad thing either. I do think that it's important for people to have, talk to a psychiatrist and talk to a therapist. And I think another really important piece is to have your therapist and psychiatrist collaborate, because the world we're living in, psychiatrists see a client for maybe 15 minutes max these days when they're
Right.
giving them medication. So
I
if the
agree. Yeah.
therapist and the psychiatrist are collaborating, you can get a lot more insight and a lot more direction.
Right. So, yeah. So I just want to pause here and say that what's so beautiful about life, especially in our from community now, we have a lot of resources that we never had. Every person is individual and every person needs something else. And if you feel that you need help, reach out. You want to send me a DM, you want to send Ellie a DM, or just go on to okclarity.com or the OK Clarity. She also has a Instagram. Just reach out to Faye Brazell and she can direct you.
There's
Somebody
also
asked
there's
about
also
insurance.
another. Sorry, I just want to say there are a number of different organizations such as Relief. Relief is a
Yes,
phenomenal organization as well.
I have
They
personally
work
used Relief. What I like about Relief is also you can talk to them on the phone.
right, and
You
I'll tell
talk
you
to them
another
on the
really great thing
phone.
about Relief is any therapist that they'll ever recommend is somebody who they sat down with for a nice amount of time. They sat with the person, the therapist. They talked to them and they spoke to them. Relief literally, they go through everybody on the team either meets with the therapist or watches a recording of each one of the therapists that they'll ever refer. So they definitely have a great resource as well.
Right, right, right. So that's why I don't want anyone ever to feel that they're alone. It doesn't matter if it's anxiety or if it's postpartum. Like I actually shared on my OK Clarity post that my first experience with going for help was when I had 5 kids in 6 years.
Right.
And
Wow.
I was very overwhelmed and I didn't have a decent insurance. So I had called Rabbi Tursky, the famous Rabbi Abraham Tursky. He was alive then. And I said, I don't know. I feel so different. I just had a baby. I'm not myself. He said, why don't you go to the Jewish Board of Family Services? They have like a sliding scale. So I made an appointment. I got there huffing and puffing with a double carriage. I didn't have a babysitter. Today I think the women are more advanced and there are ways how to get a babysitter that's not so expensive. I'm schlepping with 2 kids in a double carriage. The office is on the 3rd floor. I didn't see an elevator. By the time I schlepped upstairs and I noticed one of the kids had made a dirty diaper, I walk in. It's a young intern. She's 22 with a bun, and I start crying. And she says, why are you crying? I said, but you would never understand. Like, I'm looking at her like I have 5 kids in 6 years. I can't manage. And you're like just with a pen and paper. But I didn't get discouraged. I found somebody that would understand me and that did work for me. It's kind of like a shidduch, I guess. Not every
It's
day
very
is
much a
going to go
shidduch.
well.
So I want to say, first of all, it's very much a shidduch. Absolutely. Finding the right therapist. When somebody has a bad experience with therapy, I always say it doesn't mean that therapy is not for you. It could be that therapist wasn't for you. Number one. Number two, yeah, I think that even the Jewish board back then and the clinics out there today are very different. It's
Right.
definitely, even the interns
We're
now
talking
are
about 30
getting,
years ago, Ellie. You
yeah,
know what that
there you
means?
go.
30 years? It's like
Exactly.
such a long time. Yeah.
I think there's no question that right now there's so many more resources, whether it's clinics that, there's great therapists in private practice. There are also great therapists at clinics. And if people can't afford it, places like Rambam or in Lakewood, there's Hamed, where these are FQHCs, so they're not allowed to turn anybody down, not allowed to turn anybody away.
Right.
So
Right.
they have a sliding scale. They'll work with everybody, and they have phenomenal therapists. They have groups. They have a lot of different resources that people didn't have back in the day. So I will say that. I also will say is that as a therapist, I'm not the oldest therapist myself, but I've been humbled to work with clients as old as 80 years old. Some of my clients currently are around that age. So I don't think
Wow.
necessarily,
That's wow.
yeah, and I've worked with clients as young as 8. So I'll say that I think it's very important. I always say that if a client comes in with an open mind, I'm going to try to help them. I've Baruch Hashem helped a lot of clients that were older as well. So I don't think necessarily age is 100% the factor. It's really about the comfortability. It's about feeling the warmth in the room and knowing that you can connect with the person.
Right. Oh my, you said it so well. And this week I actually watched a little clip of you that you said even though therapy is only 45 minutes a week, it's basically it takes you through the whole week.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you're
I,
doing,
I loved
especially
what
let's
you
say,
shared. I loved what you shared. Yeah.
yeah, thanks. Especially when you're working with anxiety and let's say OCD, anxiety, things like that. There's homeworks. There's taking the skills and the tools that you learn in therapy. You want to implement them outside the room. So you want to use the therapy. You want to use the rest of the week. I like to say there's 168 hours a week. 167 of them you're not in the room. The therapy
Right.
is it's really even under an hour. You want to use those skills and tools that you gain in the therapy room and implement them outside the room. And then when you panic, it's not a good idea when you're doing things like that to reach out to your therapist because it's about learning to problem solve, coming back in the next week saying, hey, this didn't work for me. I thought it would work. I was hoping it would work. It didn't work. And then we could say, okay, well, let's problem solve. Let's figure out what came up, what got in the way, and let's then adjust and try again the next week. And that's how you learn to become that person that doesn't need to rely on your therapist, right? We don't want to be in therapy forever. Nobody does.
Right. Okay. Someone's asking about Zoom. So since COVID, right, a lot of people have switched to telehealth. I
Mm-hmm.
personally have a lot of friends that even closed their offices because they just found it works better. People, it's easier. They don't have to schlep. But my personal experience, Ellie, is that I like to be in the room with somebody. I find it's more effective. I don't have distractions. I find on Zoom I get distracted. I wanted to hear your opinion on that.
100%. I think it's not even a question, especially when it comes to kids. I mean, I can't tell you how many Zoom sessions I've done where the kid starts changing the background, changing their face, putting on filters. It
Oh
really can
wow.
get in the way of the therapy. There's no question. Even with adults, there's distractions, especially often people are using their phones and messages will pop up. And, even if they're not using their phones, then, we're so, as a generation, the reality is that we all rely on our phones so much. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people like just pick up their phones, not even if they get a text, just to look and see if anybody reached out to them. We're so reliant that not necessarily will people do it as much if you're sitting face to face, but when there's a Zoom, when there's a camera, you have so much, you know,
Right. Okay,
free
so
area where
how
you can
about
do
if somebody lives in a neighborhood? Like I've
it.
had phone calls, let's say people in Canada, let's say, they can't seem to find a therapist that specializes in what they need, whether it's for
Okay.
themselves or for the child. In that case, you would definitely recommend
A
a
hundred
more
percent. Look,
quality
I've
facilitator.
done
Yeah.
therapy sessions with people that was over Zoom. I've done phone calls as well. Like I've done therapy over the phone where a client would not have come in person, or do Zoom. They weren't feeling comfortable. Speaking about older, so somebody who was older didn't feel comfortable necessarily to do in-person sessions initially. Again, ideally, if you can come in person at least once a month, it's always better. I'm not opposed to doing Zoom or the phone. It's just I feel that in person is always the most effective.
Right. So now, besides anxiety, what other things do you address? Like, would people call you for? Like, what are you specializing in?
So I specialize in anxiety and OCD in teens and adults as well as disenfranchised people. So I work on those two things, but I do work, on, when you work in a clinic, and I've been working in clinics, for close to 7, 8 years, um, automatically you work with such an array of different types of people, and different problems. So I've worked with anywhere from generalized anxiety disorder to schizophrenia. Um,
Oh,
you know,
wow.
yeah, but I would say those are my specialties. I do work with couples. I do work with relationship issues as well. But
Ah.
I don't. What I don't work with is high risk clients. I don't
Yeah,
specialize in addiction,
right. No, there's no
addiction or
question that there are trauma specialists for those kinds of issues.
So talking about couples and let's say even children, is it beneficial? Because I got this question last night. Is it beneficial if I feel that I have an issue in my relationship, but my spouse absolutely refuses initially to go anywhere? Is it beneficial for me to show up anyway, to reach
So, I
out
mean,
and make an appointment?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, why not? If you're struggling to deal with a person, at the end of the day, we can't change other people. So even if your spouse is in the room,
By the
we
way,
can't change them.
that was your quote yesterday. What was it? It was fantastic.
Yes, right. It was how to change people. You don't.
You can't, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you
Yeah.
wrote? How to change people? You can't. That was
Exactly.
fantastic.
We
Yeah.
can't change other people, but what we can do is we can learn skills and tools to be more assertive in ways that we can create a relationship where the other person can communicate and understand us and be less defensive. Like I could say a few of them things that I really like to work with when it comes to, let's say, assertiveness skills is using words like, first of all, I statements, right? When a person uses I statements and they'll say things that I experienced instead of saying you, it allows the person to be much more receptive, because if I'm using you statements, now the person's extremely defensive and they're not really listening to me. Just as always and
Correct.
never, right? People say always and never. I like to always, ironically, say to avoid using the words always and never, because when we use words always and never, then what happens is the person nitpicks on that one time where they weren't doing that one thing that we're referring to, or they did. Oh, you never helped. Yeah, well, what about last week? So it really defeats the purpose on pointing out the feeling that I'm not feeling like I'm being helped, which again, I'm using I statements now, which allows the person to understand, hey, this is what they're feeling, which is the third thing I like to say is using feelings, right? When somebody expresses, I feel like I would benefit if we could do A, B, and C. So that's really helpful as well. Another thing is focusing forward. When we focus on the past, it really becomes, it really loses sight of what we're trying to focus on and what we're trying to improve. So we want to work on focusing forward, focusing on the do's, not the don'ts, meaning focus on what you do want the person to do as opposed to what you don't want them to do. So it's like, if we wanted, a common example, right? When we're getting ready for weddings and one person's running late. So first of all,
Typical,
never,
yeah.
right? So never have the conversation in the moment. Don't have it in the moment, because if you have it in the moment, there's overwhelming feelings. It's going to just turn into a screaming match. It's really about finding a time, especially let's say you have a wedding coming up. So it's going over to the other person and saying, "Hey, it would really mean a lot to me if we can leave early. If there's anything that you can do so that we can be ready on time, it would really mean the world to me." So it's about not having the conversation in the moment, or I really don't like it when we get there late. I would really appreciate if we could be there for the chuppah, if we could be there before the chuppah, whatever it is. It's really about focusing forward, not saying, "Oh, we're always late, we never make it," or saying, "I really don't want to show up late again," or "You don't, it's always because of you," or "You're not ready on time." It's we want to get the message across. So really, to go back to what the initial question, yeah, absolutely, you could benefit immensely. First of all, just having somebody listening to your struggle in the room, somebody who's there solely for you. I always say that when I'm in the room with a client and I say something that their wife said, they're much more receptive, or if their husband said it, right? If,
Right.
if I'm in the room with somebody and their spouse said something to them and I say it, they're much more receptive to me. And I always say, why are you more receptive to me? What is it about me that you're willing to listen as opposed to your spouse? Right? And the answer is that when I say it, they know that me and them are two people in the room here that only have their best intentions in mind. When it comes to a spouse, everybody feels like, well, who's coming out on top? Which I like to
Right.
say that if somebody comes out on top in a relationship, the other person's coming out on bottom, and we want to be on
Right.
the same field because nobody's winning if somebody comes out on bottom.
Correct. Right. It's yeah. It's so interesting because it's like the better college teachers will always start off the class by saying you have one goal, Reim Ahuvim, to become friends with your spouse. Don't, we're not changing anyone. We're not, just be friends and enjoy each other's. company, which brings me to my next thing. I know that we have so many topics, but I did want to speak a little about dating because it's such a big topic out there. And I really feel, today everybody's getting dating coaches, or if you feel that you have a little more trauma in your youth, you should definitely go to a therapist before you get into a relationship. But quickly, because you seem to have so much knowledge and you're putting everything into a couple of minutes, it's unbelievable. Really, you really can INRR. Like I could see you being like the superstar therapist, like
Thank you.
because you're so young and Kanainar, you have so much to offer. So as far as dating, like if you could just give a couple of tips for anyone that's still trying to find somebody.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like to say is the pressure when it comes to dating is to just make the decision. So often I hear people say how when they come home from the first date, they're questioning, was this the right person? Was the person I'm gonna marry? Is this the right, like they jump so ahead of themselves. I think when it comes to dating, it's so important to start out slowly and to realize, I don't want to lead, people say, I don't want to lead the other person on. I don't want them to think that, I'm not interested or I am interested if I'm not. Both of you have the same goal. You're both dating, especially in the shidduch world. You're dating for marriage. You're both dating for marriage. Both of you are dating for the same goal, and nobody wants you to dump them out of pity because you don't want to lead them on, and nobody wants you to continue dating them out of pity either. So it's really about, I would say, asking yourself two things. Did I enjoy spending time with this person? And do I want to see them again? It's not about
Right.
looking at the big picture. It's not about trying to survive to the next date. It's really just discovery. Just try to enjoy the person, enjoy the moment. Don't even think any deep thoughts. Just say, am I enjoying to spend time with this person? And do I want to see them again? Do I want to go out with them again?
Wow, fantastic. Yeah, just to keep it simple and then to slowly progress. I really, really like that. So I want to go through some quotes that are on your Instagram page because I really, really like it. Life is your 100% responsibility.
Mhm.
You had written a post. It's not the doctor, it's not the dentist, it's not the housekeeper. Like we're always looking for someone to fix us.
Right.
We're always looking for someone to come in and save us. And really the only person that's going to save us is ourselves. We really like just need to look internally.
Absolutely. Even if you go into therapy or to a doctor's office, if a doctor gives you medication and you don't take it, you're not going to get better. If you go into
Right.
therapy and you don't, I can't tell you how many times I've heard a client ask, the client will sit down and tell me, all right, what do I got to do? And I'll say, you tell me, right? Let's figure it out. And they'll say, you're the expert. And I always say is you're the expert of your life, right? I'm not the expert when it comes to you. You are. So I have skills and tools I can teach you. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to how you are going to put in the work and change. And really, it's about your goals. So if I have goals in the room, it's a problem. My goals have to be your goals. It's really important for people to come in. And again, if you don't have goals, we can work on exploring, figuring out how we can get you to your goals. But I don't want to have my goals because, for example, I mean, if I have my goals and a person's not interested, they're not going to change. Right? I always, I heard a great example is if, from women, they wear shaitel. So if a woman has a problem with trichotillomania and they're pulling out their hair, right? So, but this woman says, I really don't care if I pull out my hair. It helps me reduce anxiety and I wear a wig anyway, so nobody sees me. Nobody sees my hair. So then it's not an issue that I have an issue with because again, unless they're self-harming and going
Right.
through, hurting themselves, if they have a coping skill, then that works for them. Or even if somebody, let's say, is smoking, marijuana or whatever, again, I could point out how that might affect the other areas that they want to focus on. But I'm not going to try to get them to stop smoking because I might believe it's a bad thing to stop, for a person to smoke if that's what I believe, right? Because
Mm.
even if that's my goal, then they're not going to be interested. They're not going to listen, and I'm really talking to nobody. So it comes down to them and their goals, and yeah, it's your responsibility.
Right. So in a way, like just listening to you, that's why therapy is an amazing thing for anyone that has never been in therapy. You have your person that knows you, that gets to know you and speaks to you and is focused only on you. They don't have
Yeah, and
any other
and I always
agendas.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There's no agendas. I always tell my clients that, I have the easy job because you're the one who has to put the work in. So I get to help and be along for the ride. and, give you skills and tools, but you're the one who has to put the real work in. The onus is on you, not on me.
So what if somebody knows that they're not happy, but they don't know why they're not happy? Something's bothering them.
Okay, so then it's a lot of exploration. Again, we're going to go
Right.
through
Okay.
trying to understand how long ago did you go? Have you ever been happy? Right? When did things change? Did it? And then trying to go through what happened at that time. Could there be could there be something that came up that got in the way of the happiness? Trying to explore and figure that out together.
Exploration. That's fantastic. Wow. Wow, that's really really great. And if anyone has any questions while you're listening to the live, just type it in so we can address it. I'm just going through some of your quotes again, Ellie.
Mhm.
Everything is temporary. I can't read what I wrote. What the end of the quote is. Everything is temporary.
Well, the good and the
Never
bad is
what?
everything is temporary,
Right.
right?
Never let the things you want make you forget the things you have.
Yes, I think that's a really important one. So often we chase certain goals and we completely miss the fact that we have so much along the way.
Right. There is a saying in the 12-step program, when in negative attitude, go to gratitude. If you ever start feeling down, if you take a pen and paper and just start writing the fact that you can see and you have good friends and you're able to walk out and touch the snow and you actually have heat and you have linen on your bed, all of a sudden it shifts it because, wow, I'm really lucky. I have a lot, you know?
Hmm.
So what if I'm not married yet? Or so what if I'm struggling with a child, you know? Oh, which brings me, if you really have a kid that's an issue and they're very like especially a teen and they really don't want to go to anybody, is it beneficial for me to come to you, let's say, to learn how to deal with that child, or even come to you to help me what to tell the child to get them into somewhere?
So it's very tough when a kid doesn't want to be in therapy. When people ask me the ideal client I like to work with, I say one that wants to be in the room. I
Right,
definitely I want to work with somebody who wants to be there. I think that I would say, first of all, don't force a kid to be there, incentivize them to be there. So, that could be like, we're going to do therapy, but we're going to go for ice cream after each time, or we're going to get you a soda or a snack, or really, really make it a positive thing. I would say it definitely shouldn't be something that somebody's, kicking and screaming going to.
right,
Therapy is not, it's not a punishment. And when we force people to go, it really does seem like a punishment. And if you push somebody to go to therapy and now it's a punishment, are they really going to get the change that we want them to get? So,
right,
right. So I do think that parents can definitely benefit, again, gaining skills and tools, working with kids, how to be there for the kid and provide for the kid. A lot of our things that we do as parents definitely play a role in how our kids respond, right? Kids, not just kids, but everybody learns more from what they see than from what they were told. I was talking to a parent the other day who said to me, a certain word that the kid said. She said, "Oh yeah, I put pepper in his mouth." But I also use that word sometimes. And I said, "You put pepper in your mouth when you say the word." And she
wow,
laughed and she said, "Oh, maybe I should." And I said, "If you're going to have your kid put pepper in his mouth when he says a certain word, don't you think that would be so powerful if you also did it? If you held yourself to the same accountability?" So I
right.
think so often people don't realize that they're doing things and that what we're doing has an effect on our own kids. Coming to therapy can really help us make changes that can then positively impact that relationship.
Right, right, right. Wow. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Because I happen to give a davening share once a week, I'm just going to put in a plug here for prayer. That davening really, really helps. If you have a child that you want them to go for therapy, or you yourself are looking for a therapist and you don't know which direction to go, open that siddur and daven. Really, by Shemona Esrei, it's so powerful. We say, "Ata chonin li'adam das." Hashem, you give a person, bina and knowledge. And I always ask Hashem every morning, today I need help with this. It could be a small thing. And I find that Hashem always, always helps me.
I
Like I
think
always get the
davening doesn't
answer.
only have to be a siddur. I think davening is
Right,
also talking to Hashem in English and having a conversation, right? The whole Shemona Esrei is a bunch of fields where we're asking bakashas. So I think asking, if somebody's not at the level of sitting down and opening up a siddur and davening, sometimes just talking to God, really just having a conversation, a one-on-one, not just about our struggles, our appreciations, it can be really powerful in itself as well.
Right. Wow, wow, wow. That's why I really love like OK Clarity and Relief because they really have a lot of from therapists. I'm not saying there are a lot of facilitators out there that are so fantastic and they're so elite in their field that if someone's really dealing with trauma, I would tell them go there for sure, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I find that in our community today where you have what we didn't have years ago, where you can go to someone that understands your lifestyle and they're also Shomer Shabbos, so they understand when a teen is struggling with Shabbos or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic, you know. It really is fantastic. Um, this was another good one. Once you carry your own water, you will learn the value of every drop.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you really have some good ones, and it's like every day you just keep sending them out. How do you find time for everything?
We make time. That's the
You make
answer.
time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is another good one. If you look really closely, most overnight successes took a long time.
Absolutely. I heard a really funny line, which was, I forgot who said it, but I'm a big believer in good luck. The harder you work, the better luck you have.
The harder you work, the better luck you have. That's really nice. Listen, there's no question that a lot is our mazel, and actually davening can change our mazel. And to be in the right place at the right time, it really helps also. You know, and there's some fantastic stories where people just walked in at the right time, you know, and they
Mhm.
walked in 5 minutes later. I actually read a funny story. Somebody was online in the grocery, I think it was in Israel,
Mhm.
and someone asked them, "Could you hold my place in line? I have to go out to like smoke." You know, in Israel, everyone smokes. And all of a sudden, he comes to the counter. The other guy is still outside smoking, and the bells are ringing. Seems like he was the 100th shopper of that day, and he got his groceries for free. So this actually was a question for the Beis Din in Israel. They had to call a rabbi because the guy comes running in with his cigarette, and he's like, "Oh, I should have been the 100th. No, and I should have
Yeah.
gotten my groceries for free because he had left the line and the guy wasn't there, you know? So
Yeah.
I always say just to be in the right place at the right time, you know?
Yeah. You're talking about Mazel. I'll say Michael Safdie in Daily B'Tachon was saying how Hashem has the ability, even when somebody's a bad bar Mazel, Hashem is Yud Kei Vav Kei, and the two Heys are representing the two worlds, the Olam Haba and now. And he says that even when somebody does have a bad, somebody's a bad bar Mazel, but if we really truly have B'Tachon in Hashem, Hashem can take the Mazel from the next world and bring it down to this world.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really it. That a person should never give up the hope. And if you wake up and you're having a bad day, there are always people to call. And if you feel that you need more than a friend, you reach out and you get yourself a therapist or a coach. Again, the difference between a therapist and a therapist has all that schooling behind them. They have all those initials. They could deal with heavier issues. Someone like me who's a coach, I'm just there. I'm not looking at any past history or past traumas. I'm just looking, where do you want to go? Where are you stuck? Let me just help you with your goals. And I just help them break it up and we just move forward, you know? But always I say, if you're dealing with something really tough and specific, find somebody in your field, reach out to OK Clarity, reach out to Relief Resources. Are there any other resources that you know of?
There are. I'll tell you another really great thing. So I do work at Rambam. I'll tell you, Rambam and most clinics do work this way. Is that even if you don't know which therapist is good, when you go for an intake, you tell them everything that you're doing. You say all that you're looking for and what you're struggling with, and they work on finding you the right therapist in the clinic for whatever you're discussing and what you're going through. So
Mm-hmm.
even in a much, I guess it's not as macro of a level. It's not this massive organization. Even at clinics themselves, and I see clients that were paying out of pocket. I see clients that are paying through commercial insurance, paying through Medicaid, whatever it is, there's lots of different people who come into the doors, and it's really about saying, okay, what are the struggles I'm dealing with? Is it anxiety? Okay, well, which therapist works with anxiety here? It's okay, and what are their hours? What are their availability? Let's find the perfect person to work with them. So even on a much smaller level, there are plenty of clinics out there. I know there's also an organization called Simha, which like Simcha, but without the C. It's SIMHA. It's more of the Syrian community, but they also work with Ashkenaz people. It's another like a relief type thing, but not as big.
Wow, fantastic. So I just want to quickly recap everything that we spoke about because it really was fantastic. You touched on CBT, DBT, IFS, all the different
Mhm.
modalities that you work with.
So I
I
want
love
to
it.
say I didn't really discuss DBT, but when you were saying you were discussing about the AA saying that you said about when what did you say when in
When a negative attitude, go to gratitude.
right? So when a negative attitude go to gratitude, I think that the DBT is dialectics. It's really about the concept that two things can coexist. So when you were saying, if you're going through a hard time, well, think of the good things. I think that there's a space to allow both to coexist, right? Meaning I can be going through a hard time and still appreciate, and we don't have to push away the negative, but allow them to coexist, allow them to both exist at the same time. For example, I have a feelings wheel in my room, in my therapy room, where when a client tells me they're, going through something, so I'll give them the feelings wheel, and I'll tell them, I want you to go through the whole wheel and tell me what you're experiencing. What are you feeling right now in the moment? There are a lot of times where people will be experiencing negative feelings and positive feelings. A lot of times people don't even know their feelings, right? They'll just say
Right.
happy, sad. So giving them this feelings wheel allows them to really break down the feelings and understand them and themselves in such a deeper light. But again, it really there can be two things that can coexist. We can have a positive thing and a negative thing existing together, where it doesn't. A lot of times people just think, oh, if I'm going through a hard time, it's all bad. So allowing it to be good also allows that to
Right.
to
So you're saying feelings can coexist with the same situation, or that I have two different things going on in my mind at the same time?
yes, both.
Both. Okay, no, because I
Absolutely.
experienced this recently. I had this really, really recently where my daughter had a baby. Baruch Hashem, I was very excited. But then my son-in-law called to tell me that the baby had an issue. They were rushing the baby with a Hatzalah truck to the NICU, and I should say Tehillim. And I was really, really sad. I opened the Tehillim. I'm like, what? I don't know what's going to be. And I was really sad. And
That's
I
such
got
a
a
great
phone
example. That
call.
doesn't take away from the happiness that they had a baby, right? We're
Right. But listen,
sad.
I know, but listen to this. While I'm saying to him, I got a phone call from someone very close to me that someone, an older single that we've been waiting for a long time, is getting engaged. So I'm like, I look up and I'm like, really, God? Like you want me to be happy and sad at the same time? But I think that's what Gullus is. Like when Mashiach comes, there's going to be clarity. We're going to have tremendous goodness. There'll be mental health. Everybody will be really emotionally healthy, and there will be no sickness, and people aren't going to cheat and lie and steal. It's going to be this blissful world that we all dream of. But I
Mhm.
think until then, we go through the whole day with so many feelings and emotions.
Absolutely. But I love that example. I love that example that you gave, because first of all, yeah. So there was a sad feeling of the baby, which I hope the baby's fine.
Yes, Baruch
Um,
Hashem, thank you. Yeah,
Baruch
yeah,
Hashem.
bliss is good. Yeah,
Baruch Hashem. Again, there are two different things. You're saying how there's two different things here, where somebody got engaged and a baby's sick, and then at the same time, you're really happy that your daughter had a baby, and you're nervous at the same time with whatever's going on. That doesn't mean that you're not happy anymore, right?
right,
Just because you're feeling sad that the baby's not well doesn't mean you're not happy in the same moment. One feeling can definitely be more powerful than the other feeling. That doesn't take away from the fact that, hey, there's a lot of goodness going on here too. And often that when somebody goes from that happiness to that bad news, they're just going to completely wipe away the whole positive feeling. But if you can allow them to coexist, it really gives us a lot more of just a healthier mindset.
right, 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 right. Wow, yeah, it's true. Again, Ellie, really, I mean, this conversation has been so amazing. Did you touch on IFS? I forgot.
So no, I could tell you quickly. IFS is the
Yeah.
internal family systems, which is not the internal family as in like you'll think the whole family. It's the internal family within you. There's a great movie called Inside Out. I don't know if you heard of it or if you've watched it. They have two movies. It's what do you call it again? It's animated. The Inside Out 2, they actually hired an IFS specialist to make the movie.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. The concept of IFS is, in a nutshell, is that we have a lot of different parts inside of us. These are protectors. For example, anxiety, stress, anger, and again, all parts are good parts. And we're really sort of bringing this whole thing full circle to how we started out with discussing anxiety. Is all these parts are good. Now, what happens is it becomes bad when we go from a space where anxiety is a helper, a protector that's here to help you through a tough situation. When it goes from that to a space where anxiety feels like I have to protect, I have to protect Ellie to such an extent where now he's in the driver's seat. Meaning all I'm able to do is just notice the anxiety and not able to focus on anything else. So that's where the issue lies. Now, IFS is a modality where we connect with the different protectors and we try to create a space and a world where we can have a life where we can coexist with the protectors, with these different, anxiety, stress, anger, all these parts, to understand them and for them to understand us better, where we can coexist and they can be helpful toward us instead of ending up getting in the way of our, success.
Unbelievable. Wow. You really explained that well. Again, going back to what you said, that the anxiety can be a positive thing. I love
Not it
that.
can be. It is a good thing.
It
The
is.
problem is
Anxiety
when
is a
we
good thing.
right, meaning that the issue is never really the anxiety, it's how we respond to the anxiety. Meaning, often what happens is that people will try to push away the anxiety. And anxiety is trying to tell us something, but instead of looking at what the anxiety is trying to tell us, we're so disgusted by anxiety because it's a bad thing. So now we just spend all our effort and all our focus on the anxiety, and we're just trying to push it away when we're completely neglecting the whole reason why we're feeling anxious. So then it just balloons into this really, negative experience. But it's not that anxiety is a bad thing. It's more about the fact that we're responding to it in a negative way.
Correct. Wow. Yeah, beautiful. And then we discussed the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors, that it's kind of like a cycle. So we should really work on our thoughts. Um, just quickly, if someone is not in therapy, what's the quickest way to change my mindset? Like I walk into a room, I'm starting to feel insecure. What's a 1 second tool that you can give us to change your mindset right away?
So I would say utilize your five senses. It's called grounding. Grounding
Oh,
is
grounding, right. Yes, I remember learning
grounding. Yeah.
that. Yes, grounding.
So,
Yes.
so when people are feeling
Using your
overwhelmed
five
and
senses.
anxious, yeah, sorry, yeah, utilize your five senses. What I mean is, often anxiety is due to living in our head. We're focused on a lot of thoughts, right? When somebody's struggling to sleep, it's usually because they're sitting down, they're laying down, and they're finally not running away from their thoughts. So all of a sudden they're sitting there, they're laying in bed, and now they're going through all the thoughts that they've been basically running away from through whether it's work, whether it's going out with your friends. Again, I'm not saying all these things are running away, but by doing these things, these are distractions, and they are not necessarily avoidances, but just distractions from our thoughts. So when we're feeling nervous, when we're feeling anxious, grounding can be really helpful, such as listening in the room. So I do it a lot in therapy, where I'll sit with a person, I'll say, okay, let's notice. I want you to list everything that you're hearing right now, right, and just sit quietly in the room and notice different things. You could hear the air conditioner humming. You can hear the cars outside moving. It's really grounding to just bring yourself to the here and now. Listen. So that's
Wow.
listening. Also, just looking around the room, noticing things in the room that are not moving, not people. Right. Just noticing different things in the room that are not moving. Something I really like to do is feeling, but not feeling with your fingers. You could do feeling with your fingers, but feeling with your mind, which is just noticing, for example, I would say, I'm noticing the wig on your head right now in the moment. When I tell you, try to notice the wig on your head. Do you feel it?
I do.
Okay, exactly. But while we were talking about it, were you thinking about the wig?
No, I wasn't. No.
Exactly. So I'll go with the client. We'll go from your toes up to your head, and we'll just notice your shoes around your feet. Notice, your sleeves where they end, and then feeling the breeze of the ear in the room. Not under your sleeves. Notice where your shirt, the shoulder blades are, and noticing the tightness, or noticing how your feet one are on top of the other. Just really grounding yourself and noticing how you are, just in the room, in the moment, in the here and now, and not getting caught up in thought and anxiety.
Is that like the squishy ball is? They sell those stress balls, like if you're sitting at your desk, and you press.
It definitely can be that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking that's what's like a grounding thing. Or
Yeah,
sometimes they say take an ice cube if like you're experiencing
absolutely.
anxiety,
That's exactly that. Yes, an
right?
ice
They
cube
always
in
say
your
take
mouth.
an ice cube and put it in your mouth or under your arm. I
Yeah,
guess it's the five senses. I love
exactly. It's
that.
noticed exactly.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so Ellie, if somebody wants to reach out for you, what's the best way like you like people to contact you? What's the best form?
Yeah.
How do you
So you
work
can
it?
definitely reach out to me directly. My number, my email. There's also, I'm on OK Clarity. I'm on Psychology Today. I have my group, my Instagram. Plenty of places to reach out, and
Okay, great.
LinkedIn.
So you want to just give your phone number because I'm going to post it on YouTube
Yeah,
probably
sure.
also.
It's 914-458-2323. And my
Okay,
email is Eli
I'm gonna
Weinreb. Sorry?
right. Okay,
Eli
Ellie
Weinreb,
Weinberg
LCSW at Gmail.
at. Okay,
Gmail.
fine. We'll do that. Ellie Weinreb, LCSW at Gmail. Okay, great. Ellie, it was so fantastic. It was really. Do you have any closing remarks?
No, thank you so much for this opportunity. I
Yeah,
appreciate
it
it.
was really
And
great because
I'm
we were
glad we were able
trying
to
to
make
get
it
together
happen.
for so long, and the snow made it happen,
There
and
you
you didn't
go.
have to work tonight. You see, so
Exactly.
everything has benefits, right? Even the snow.
A
Um,
hundred
I
percent.
I know it wasn't such an easy day for everyone, especially for those mothers that had all their children home today.
Absolutely.
So I hope that tomorrow we're going to get back to school. We'll see what happens, right?
Let's hope
I,
so.
I, I think it was worse in Tom's River. I happen to be in Brooklyn now.
Yeah.
I think in Tom's River it was worse, from what I
I mean,
understand.
I think even so, like, it was crazy all morning, but by the end of the day, I feel like once the weather sort of got a little warmer, everything melted away. Like if you shoveled, everything's clear. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
it
Also,
wasn't like
that's another thing I really learned because last snowstorm, I didn't dig out my car and it
Mhm.
took me a while. Today, I took a broom. I said, the snow is soft. Let's take the opportunity, do it right away. And
The last
it's always
snowstorm, it
good
was
to do.
also the weather for like 2 weeks later were under freezing, so
Right.
that
And
definitely
hopefully
played a
this week
different.
it's going to warm up. Exactly. It's
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Thanks everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, reach out to Ellie or me. I'll just leave my number if anybody needs it. 347-731-7276. Everyone have a good evening. Good night, everyone. Thanks. Thanks for
Take
joining
care.
us. I'm going to save it, Ellie. So we'll do the collaboration again.
Sure
Okay.
thing. Take care.
Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Bye.